Hello class, and welcome to this Gremlins 2 NES walkthrough right here on Video Games 101 by way of Let's Play with Brigands. I'm your instructor, Professor Brigands, and class, I have a confession to make. I just saw for the first time in my life the original Gremlins movie. And I probably maybe saw parts of it on Comedy Central or something back in the day, but just saw it for the first time all the way through, and I have to say, how cute is Gizmo? There he is, hanging on for dear life onto that 2 right there, over on the right side of the screen. So cute that I immediately said to Fluff, is there a Gremlins game on the NES? He said no, but there's a Gremlins 2. And I said, done. That's what we're doing this week. And more to the point, we've had a number of students in our class requesting a walkthrough on this game for quite some time. So happy to finally be covering it. Sorry it took so long. But this is Gremlins 2, the new batch from Sunsoft. You know you're probably in good hands with Sunsoft. In terms of difficulty, Gremlins 2 nicely balances increasingly difficult platforming with tight controls. Add in the fact that they're somewhat generous with helpful items which you can purchase, plus the inclusion of unlimited continues and a password system. And I'm going to go ahead and give Gremlins 2 a 5 out of 10. On the frustration scale, this equates to throwing your controller across the room, maybe because you fell into a pit without a balloon late in the game during some of the more difficult stretches. But we got some tips, we have some interesting facts on this game. I think Fluff might have some facts on the movie, might have some facts as to why there was no Gremlins 1 on the NES, but I'll leave that to him. Gary's got your boss beaters, Blades has your items guide, so let's run the intro and get into this Gremlins 2 walkthrough right here on Video Games 101. He's so cute. Alright, as we start a new game here, we get some context as to what's going on at the start. Poor little Gizmo is being kept in a lab, it looks like, but our handler, Billy, who looks more like David Hasselhoff there, giving us the thumbs up. He says, be free, little Gizmo, and that's what we're going to do. As we take a look at the controls now for Gremlins 2, could not be more straightforward. Part of the fun of this game is just how simplified but tight the controls are. Attack with B, jump with A. We can move diagonally. Press start just to see what our situation is with our secondary items. Find the big tomato. We have tomatoes as a starting weapon. Our weapons will automatically get upgraded with each stage as we take down some bosses. But got our first pit right here. I like to jump a little bit early. Make sure you know where that platform is going to end, so you don't jump thinking it's going to still be coming toward you when it's already started moving the other way. But if you fall into a pit, it's not a big deal. You just lose a little bit of health and get reset on the other side, so not too bad right here. But we're about to enter our first shops with an overview of those items we can buy. Here's Blaze. Alright, let's talk the items you can purchase in the shops here in Gremlins 2. Note that you can only make one purchase per shop, so spend wisely. And also note that the inventory for each shop will vary from shop to shop. So, first, a very wise purchase. The big heart, this gives you an extra heart. You cap at 4, so you can only really buy 1, unless you die and lose it, but good thing to get very early on. Balloons, after you have that heart, not a bad purchase. This gives you 5 seconds of floating if you fall into a pit. We have the little Gizmo doll, adorable. That's worth an extra life right there. Then we have the heart refill potion right here, to your heart's back. And then finally, the power up for your weapon. This adds projectiles to your weapon. Maybe increases the range, adds some more projectiles, so you have a little bit more spread. You're doing more damage, especially if you're close up. But I'll let the professor and Gary talk about that. Good call. Thank you very much, Blaze. We get to the end of this first stage. We go on to 1-2. Let's take a look at the Briggs notes for this Gremlins 2 NES walkthrough, the keys to beating this game. First, be patient and attack your enemies from a distance. There's generally a finite number of enemies. They're not respawning, so if you clear out enemies that are maybe guarding a difficult to jump around area, that's a safe way of doing it. Just take out these spiders one at a time here. Second, prioritize health and attack upgrades early on in the shop rather than balloons and things like that. And lastly, use Gary's boss beaters. We'll have our first boss coming up in a little bit. There's not a boss at the end of the first overall stage, so we have a bit more time here. And as we have a bit more time, we're just continuing on here. Let's bring back in Blaze for an overview of some of these items we're picking up as we are killing enemies and the things that they'll drop. Blaze?
Alright, let's cover the basic items you can find from killing enemies here in Gremlins 2. First, the crystal ball. Each of these is worth 20 crystal balls specifically. Not sure how that works, but that's the currency for turning these in at the shop to get items you can buy. Next, the pogo stick grants you 7 seconds of invincibility. Don't try to make jumps with the pogo stick, mind you. Not too good for that, but definitely for taking down lots of enemies who are in a close range. The light bulb, this kills all enemies on the screen at once. Rare as it is, but that's what it does. And finally, also very rare, the stopwatch freezes enemies on the screen for roughly 8 seconds.
Now the light bulbs and the stopwatches are a bit more rare. You'll find that certain enemies in particular will always drop the some of the fancier items like the pogo stick, but we get our first attack upgrade. As I said, it's just an automatic, just automatically gets applied. We don't have a choice to alternate between. Oh, he's so sad, that little Gizmo, and we got some water on him. That's rule number 1, I believe, in terms of the care instructions for your Mogwai when you get one. Get it wet and it will divide, and you'll get some doofy looking gremlins, I suppose. And then it just kind of goes downhill from there, basically. So I don't know why Gremlins seemingly oh my goodness. You can tell it's Sunsoft from that animation right there. In case you weren't sure, this is very much a Sunsoft game. Plays a lot like Fester's Quest, actually. And as we are playing through this level here, you can hit these bombs from a distance, as you can see, to get them to detonate early. Otherwise, if you get too close, they will charge at you and explode, so it's nice to put a little distance there and fire. Jump over these electrified coils right here, and got our 7 seconds of pogo invincibility right there. As we're pogoing and avoiding damage and doing a bit of shopping, as we can get our weapons upgrade right now. This will stay on all of our weapons until we lose our first life, so hang on to that as best you can. It has a different effect on every single weapon. You can see right here, it just kind of gives us that split of to the left, to the right, and right in front of us. Has different effects with each weapon, but as we're working our way through here, following those Briggs notes, just taking our time, let's bring in Fluff for our first Fluff fact about Gremlins 2, The New Batch.
Gremlins 2, The New Batch is a 1990 NES and Game Boy action platformer developed by Sunsoft. Players may recognize many of the sound effects, art style, and especially the gameplay as being taken from other Sunsoft titles. The engine itself is a modified version of that from their recent Fester's Quest and the top-down portions of the excellent Blaster Master, both of which we've done classes here on Video Games 101, which you can check out via the playlist in the description. With tighter controls and enjoyable platforming buoyed by the ability to move diagonally and jump, Gremlins 2 plays like a version of Fester's Quest where the developers learn from their mistakes, making this a pretty decent game outside of its brevity. Plus, how cute is Gizmo?
That's what I'm saying, Fluff, and that's a great point about this being what Fester's Quest could have been, essentially. If you would only, we got actually a tricky little jump here. You gotta make sure you come in at this one diagonally so that you can not have to readjust, since this platform is so small and we can hit that enemy to the up and left of us. But yes, it definitely, if it could have had the length that Fester's Quest had, although Fester's Quest went on a little bit too long, but if it were better like this game, then I think, yeah, that would have been a very nice compromise right there. So we got skateboarding gremlins, we got different types, ones that fire projectiles. Now they're starting to open up the different types of enemies. Got these flying gremlins, which again, finite number. Once you take them down, you'll be in much better shape. These jumping ones take a few hits, so if you can set yourself up don't even have to fight this guy. Just a lot of times it's just safer to avoid damage rather than posting up and actually throwing down with some of these other gremlins. But anyway, one thing to mention is, as we make our next purchase here, we can... So if we buy this, since we've already maxed out the number of hearts we can get, this just tops off our health, essentially. So that's not a bad play when you're a little bit low on health, when that's an option in the store. But another instance where we want to keep our distance, your weapon generally has enough range to hit a lot of enemies before they can hit you, assuming they're stationary, or in that case, have a limit to how far they can go exactly, as is the case with the skateboarders. But you'll quickly find that you will have far more of the currency of this game in those crystal balls than you actually need, so you don't have to go out of your way to pick one up if you don't want to. It is fun to pick them up, I will say that. We can stay here and hit this guy if we time it just right and get to the edge, you can see. If you want to practice patience here. We are coming up on the first boss for what it's worth. If you want to conserve some health, but then again, we got the best boss beater in the biz, so shouldn't be too concerned. So let's throw it to him now with our first boss beater. Here's Gary.
It's Scary Gary's Boss Beaters. Alright, kind of the generic hopping gremlin right here. Very simple. Fire, run, turn, and repeat. So just fire, run, turn, get some more shots off, run again. Not too difficult a strategy right here. You'll take him down before too long.
Yeah, this one can't keep up with you, so just keep moving. Hit him at the full reach of your match weapon right there, your match attack, which just comes out as the fire, I guess, when he whips that match. Has anyone seen the new batch, by the way? Leave a comment if you've seen it and can recommend it, knowing how much I enjoyed the first Gremlins, for what it's worth. Not sure how much of the plot is being followed here. Obviously it's a tie-in, but alright, so there we go. Got the paperclip now as our second weapon upgrade here in the game. And you can see, along with the weapon upgrade which we already got, adds in some extra paper clips that we wouldn't have otherwise. Has some decent reach. And you'll find that if you get in very close when you do that attack, and we got our first stopwatch right there, that you get a lot more hits in by virtue of just all those paper clips being clustered up, hitting that enemy right in front of you. So being closer with this particular weapon, and the ones that we get moving forward actually, does tend to do more damage. So something to keep in mind for some bosses. You can see with that spinning mace right there that we can grab some balloons now to stock up in case we fall into the pits like Blaze mentioned. But yes, those maces that are on the chain, actually there's a little trick right here. If you get to the very edge and you just attack, you can kind of bait the enemies that you can't see and then clear out this platform, otherwise they will all start coming at you as soon as you hit that platform, maybe knock you into the pit. There you can go around that spinning mace right there, but yeah, just know that you can kind of jump over it like a skip it. Turn around as soon as you jump over. That's a data reference to skip it. But as you get in the kitchen right here, immediately turn around and throw some paper clips into those gremlins coming out of the ground right there. Note that those are two walls there. The perspective's a little funky. We want to jump in between them. And now I'm told with information on what happened to Gremlins 1, the video game. Here's Fluff.
Like with a few other NES titles which are sequels despite no existence of an initial entry on the system, I'm looking at you Goonies too. Players might be wondering just what the heck happened to Gremlins 1. Gremlins the film was released in 1984, which predated the NES, but not the Famicom. At the time, Atari was the biggest name in town, though to be fair, this was right in the heart of the video game crash of the early to mid-80s, when many analysts believed video games were a dying fad. But I digress. There was a 1984 Gremlins 1 developed by Atari for their Atari 2600, which was a tie-in to the film. As you'd expect, the gameplay was pretty rudimentary and simply involved trying to keep Mogwai from eating hamburgers, presumably after midnight, before shooting waves of gremlins on the next stage, a la Space Invaders or Galaga. When Gremlins 2, the new batch, was set to come out, multiple versions of tie-in games to the film were made on various platforms. In addition to the NES version, there's a version for the variety of computer systems of the day like Amiga and the Commodore 64 made by Topo Software, which was notable for being the first Spanish video game developer to get a license to make a game based on a Hollywood film. There's also a crappy version for DOS, which was not surprisingly developed by High-Tech Expressions, a company not known for the quality of their platformers. I'm looking at you, DOS Mega Man and Mega Man 3.
Yeah, those were pretty bad. Made by a single guy, so I guess, points for effort, but note which way that these conveyor belts are moving, and you can see as we're moving against them the speed, so not too bad as long as you're in control and know what's going on. But speaking of knowing what's going on, back to Gary.
Boss beaters are the electric gremlin. Want to keep in line with this boss from a distance, so kind of, staying in line with them. Just keep firing. You can also get close and fire away, knowing that your attacks are more concentrated, assuming you've gotten that attack upgrade. So it's really your call. If you've got some health in the tank, go ahead. Not a difficult battle either way, like most bosses in this game.
Alright, got our new bow and arrow weapon right there. The electric gremlin, as an aside, by the way, Billy looks more like Billy there and less David Hasselhoff, but electric gremlin sounds like one heck of a dance, I have to say, as we are enjoying the spread on our new weapon with that upgrade. Just in time for magic gremlins, apparently, with their top hats. Not a bad time to have some balloons, though, coming up here, or purchase some in the upcoming shops, as there are some tricky stretches where, you'll get a lot of conveyor belts, a lot of pits, enemies trying to knock you in. But as we're continuing on with this tricky stretch, we got time for one last Fluff fact. Let's bring him back in. Here's Fluff.
Like I typically do when we're covering a game based on a movie, I thought I'd share some facts about the film itself, or in this case, Gremlins 2, the new batch, as well as the original film. For instance, Chris Columbus, who would go on to direct Home Alone and its sequel, as well as Mrs. Doubtfire, wrote the script for Gremlins as a writing sample, never intending it to get made. The script made its way into the hands of Steven Spielberg, who called it one of the most original things he'd come across in many years, and he bought it on the spot. In talking a bit about the sequel, most of the principal cast returned to reprise their roles, including the voice of Gizmo, Howie Mandel.
Oh, I didn't even know Howie Mandel voiced Gizmo.
Yep. Howie voiced everyone's favorite Mogwai, and he actually did a lot of other voice acting work, which children of the 80s and 90s would recognize, from Bobby of Bobby's World to Skeeter on the Muppet Babies, all of which pretty much sound the same if you listen to them. Gremlins 2 was rated PG-13 for many scenes which were deemed too scary or mature for young children. This is after its predecessor was rated PG and actually helped inspire the new rating system of PG-13 in 1984, along with Poltergeist and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, all of which were rated PG and had content which was arguably too scary for most kids.
Yeah, I could see a lot of parents rightfully complaining. Having just watched it, I was surprised that it was only PG. That said, it certainly wasn't R, so it proves the need for that rating in between.
Yep. I believe Red Dawn was the first PG-13 movie, which is a good fit for that one, but speaking of how Gremlins was too dark for most kids, an early draft of the script even included the Gremlins decapitating Billy's mother and eating the family dog, both of which Spielberg and the studio agreed should be removed in an effort to make the film more family-friendly.
Thank you very much, Fluff. So here, I think we're going to have our choice between, I might get the health since we're down the 2 hearts right now. Top off our health right there. Balloon was tempting. I think we only have 1 or 2 right now, but so again, we can hop over this. Just kind of time it right there, not too bad. Once again, just make sure you know which way that conveyor belt is going so that you can start moving accordingly. You don't get surprised or overcompensate. You can see the speed at which we move when we're walking against it, so the dead end over here to the right. You could be forgiven for thinking there might be a hidden shop or something back there. You can definitely see the Fester's Quest art style on display in this game. Certainly hear it in the soundtrack as well. But anyway, next boss, Gary.
Boss beaters. The machine gun gremlin. Just get on the right side, around the middle. Keep firing like we show. It's not hard at all.
Thank you, Gary. And yeah, you can see the closer he gets, the more shots we put into him, actually. So down he goes. And I guess a more advanced version of the fire we already had. This is more of a torch, I suppose. They didn't go all out on the cutscenes. You can see they gave us a couple early, but you can see how this fire works. Launch it, and then with the upgrade, it does that little explosion right there. Lots of pits right here, lots of moving parts. And more of these guys that we kind of had a taste of earlier. If you can kind of trigger them with your weapon before you get close, that's a good way of dealing with them. Just try to take as little damage as possible through this stretch. That's typically how I manage it. And if you need to use a balloon here, no shame in that. Makes everything so much easier, especially if you can get past this one part right here. You got more of these guys that explode once they come at you. That just kind of worked right there. Kind of legendary wings-like enemies right there, if you know the reference. Another game we've done a class on in the past. And some of the toughest platforming right here with the moving conveyor belts, and that was just sloppy actually, but yeah, we get to use our balloon. Just remember, keep in mind it's only a few seconds, so make sure you are always on solid ground after those first few seconds for when you touch down. So we got one last shop coming up here. If you want to grab a balloon to just fly over this whole next section, not a bad play, honestly. But why can't we buy more than one item here, Sam? Come on, we're sitting on 2,300 crystal balls. Anyway, I rarely get through this stretch without having to use, so just, yeah, go ahead. I'll throw it to Gary for the last boss a little bit early here. Gary?
Alright, the spider gremlin, the final boss here in Gremlins 2. You want to stay in front of his face and just keep jumping and attacking at the bottom of the screen. When he charges at you, you gotta move left and right as necessary to stay in that sweet pocket where you don't take damage. But yeah, if you just wanna, if you got full health at this point, you're just over this game and you're just saying to yourself, let's take him down. You could be aggressive and just move up, start shooting him. Your attacks will take him down before his attacks take you down. Regardless, good luck.
Good luck, thank you very much, Gary. Excellent tips there for the bosses. Again, not the hardest in this game, particularly with those tips. By the way, we have a flicker warning coming up right here. Just want to make that clear. And is this consistent, again, class, with what happens in the sequel, for those who have seen it? Does Billy use some sort of electric telephone to melt all the gremlins? That's just unnecessary, by the way, that flashing, but had to melt all the gremlins, apparently. Is that how that works? Even whoever that was, Spike or Stripe. But there you go. Billy, Phoebe Cates, and Gizmo in the box. It's a happy ending. That's our time for this week, though, class. Once again, huge thanks to all of my TAs for helping me through this one. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for requesting it for those who did. And please consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. We do one of these classes every single week in the same spot. We'd love to have you enrolled. Click that like button if you don't mind. It really does help us out to make future classes for you. And leave a comment again. Have you seen the sequel? Have you played this game? What do you think of this game? I enjoyed it quite a bit. Quality title from Sunsoft. Nice little platformer right here in Gremlins 2. And we'll see y'all next week in the same spot for next week's class, right here on Video Games 101. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and comment on this video and click subscribe if you haven't already, as this seriously helps me to keep making great content for you. And check the description of this video to see what song is playing right now.
Once in